Start recording. Lovely. So welcome everybody to the second in our series of mental fitness for life after lockdown. And as before, I'm delighted to be joined by Ross McWilliam, our expert speaker on the topic of mental fitness from Mindset Pro. And Ross is going to take us through the second in our series of mental fitness for the long term. So I'm going to hand over to you, Ross. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. The most important question is, how long does it go on for? We live our lives in anticipation. So it's 12:45, but I might just do that a bit earlier. So we might just stop the formal session around just before 22, and we'll take some of your questions in. So we've got a gap at the end for your questions. We're going to 12:45. If you've got some questions before then, put them in the chat box. Okay, so that's really powerful for us to get the engagement. So thank you for having me back. I had some good feedback from the last session. And let's push on then to talk about today, which is mental fitness for the long term. So foundations to build upon. So I'll talk about concepts, but I always try and make it practically orientated. So the last part of today's presentation, I'll give you some more strategies that you can use that will support your long-term well-being, but also you can use in the short term as well, just to get you back to finding the original self, that's you, that's forming well in life, that's reaching the potential, that's dealing with these challenges. Okay. So a group agreement, we mentioned this last time, you know, we can share stuff, whatever people tell me, I don't talk to anybody else about. We listen, ask questions through the chat box, interrupt me. If you want to interrupt me, I'm happy with that. And anything else. I want to make sure it's safe. And that's really important. Okay. So first one, what do you see? What do you say? Who's going to talk to me? Who's going to put something in the chat box? Put it in. Jenny will tell me something in the chat box. I can't see it at the moment. Anyone want to shout out? Anyone to write something down? What's the two crimes? There's a clue for you. What's the two crimes? Okay, I've got one in the chat box here, two in the chat box. Let's have a look.
Yeah, we've got people coming in with
money
laundering.
That's one of them. There's another one as well. There's another crime. Assault and battery, brilliant. Assault and battery and money laundering, brilliant. Fantastic. Who was that? Who's got them both? Ellie. Fantastic, Ellie. Next one. Let's just take that off for a second. Let's go to the next one. Can you solve that? Children do it less than 20 seconds. Your young adults expect less than 10. Oh, already. Who's that, Jenny?
That's Sarah.
Is it right? What'd you say?
It is right.
87?
Yeah.
87.
Oh, no, should it be 78?
87, I think. It's upside down. Yeah. So it should be 87.
78 coming in from Corinna, which is, I think, what I would have said. 86,
87, 78. 78 then. Yeah, it's a long time since I've done this. 78. Is that what we're going for? 78.
78 from Corinna. Yeah, because brilliant. It's when you look upside down.
You're upside down, aren't
is this our mental fitness here, Ross? You're getting
right,
us sharp, aren't you?
Yeah, 87 we're saying, yeah?
78, I think.
78. They're upside down. I thought it went 89, 87, 88. All right. Okay, let's go to the next one. There we go. I'll look at that later. So this one is a very good one. And I'll give you a clue because I'm a nice person. The clue is a bit of a game. Has anybody got it, Jenny?
No, not yet. I can't see anything in yet. Monopoly?
Correct, Monopoly. There's a card around an object. There's a boot, there's a shoe, that sort of stuff. It's Monopoly.
That's great. So Catherine, Inga and Sarah had the mental sharpness for that one.
That's right, probably better than me, which is good. Okay, let's get back onto today now. Let's get serious. So we've got that dopamine released. We should be in a bit more focused mood. There are 5 pillars which I often talk about. And I was writing an article yesterday for a Rugby League magazine, and I talked about these 5 areas of sleep, exercise, diet, being connected, An interesting one, self-esteem and purpose. And if you've got these things going on and we're doing these things consciously, unconsciously, explicitly or implicitly, then we're going to probably have a good chance to get some very sustained well-being. So I'm going to take us a rapid tour around these now and give you some sort of knowledge bites on this. But, you know, when everybody's got mental health, that's the first thing. To get the mental health and well-being, we've got to, it can't all come to us. We've got to reach out a bit and take responsibility. And we talked about change, of doing some action. So I'm going to give you some little shortcuts now that you can use. So there's a lot of things that might affect this ability. I'm going to put them on the screen now for you. So we know that gender, in terms of well-being and mental health, you know, if we're a female, we're probably going to be statistically more vulnerable to some mental challenges, yeah? It doesn't mean to say that we're going to get them. It just means to say potentially we are. And if we're younger as well, it's something to be aware of. So, you know, you're young people, but you're past the critical point of 18. The critical point of 18 means 75% of mental illness and lack of well-being potentially going to happen under 18. We're above that. So I think, you know, we're on the straight in a lot of ways. And again, I'm not going to go through each one of those, but there are some things there that, you know, that happen to us that we can't control. All we can control is our response to them rather than just ignoring them. That could be a response. But what I'd like people to do is just recognize that, you know, and think, you know what, there may be some stuff in there that I can manipulate. Like you can't choose your parents, but you can choose your friends. You can have some choice on your environment, and your workplace is a good example of that. And you certainly can look at your exercise, diet, sleep, and connectivity. Okay, so it's not a case of, oh, I can't do anything, this is what life's dealt me. There are things we can manipulate. And I think we've come out of that sort of blame culture, not victim culture, although sometimes that's appropriate. There's always bits we can use and turn around. So that's the message for this screen. So as we move it along then, that's where we're going. Let's have some quick nuggets now for us. So self-esteem and purpose. Self-esteem is how much we think we're worth. And if we think we're worth something, we value ourselves, there's a good chance we can develop confidence. Confidence, not being scared to say and do and think things. Confidence could be public speaking. Confidence could be putting your hand up when other people aren't putting their hand up. Confidence could be keeping quiet when you know an answer and you don't want to share it. And so it doesn't always have to be loudness. Confidence is that belief in ourselves that we're not scared to do something, showing a bit of courage and bravery. And if something doesn't go right, we're going to learn, okay? And that's the secret, developing self-esteem and confidence, is when things don't go quite right, to recognize that, be aware, and then to implement a change next time. So that will lead us to get that purpose. And that purpose could be quite wide-ranging. The purpose to be a good friend, a good son or daughter, to have a professional job, as you guys are now, to reach your potential, to help other people, which is a very altruistic quality. So they sort of go together, self-esteem, purpose, and confidence, not being scared. So this is very powerful. How do we build this up is a great question. Recognizing our strengths rather than magnifying our weaknesses. Yeah. So take those compliments, look for the good bits every day. And I think I mentioned last time, you know, especially at the end of the day, write 3 things down, the today result that went really well, and write 3 things for tomorrow's promise you're going to do. If we keep focusing on that optimistic, positive viewpoint of life, it helps us lean more towards that. So don't magnify the negative. There's so much out there, you don't even have to magnify it. So try and work on that positive aspect of yourself. And again, we've got some activities on that which we can give you through the individual sessions and through some resources as well. Okay. And this presentation, I think Jenny's going to share it with you. There's a way to measure your self-esteem, okay? And this is done from 1965 from a scientist, and it's still relatable and factual and accurate to this very day. And he gives a measure out of 30 of your self-esteem. If we can get between 10 and 25, that means we're doing really, really well. If we get too high, we could be considered big-headed and arrogant. Too low, a bit nervous and shy, but more to the point, we're not taking advantage of life's opportunities. So when I talk about self-esteem, I want you to believe that you've got something to offer, that you're going to grow and develop, and you're going to help other people. That, to me, is that belief. And so you can do this at your leisure and measure it. Don't compare with anybody else, because life's not about comparison. Life's about collaboration. So I want you to do it, and then maybe do it in a few months' time and see if you've improved. And if you have or haven't, work out how to improve it. So those are the questions. They're on the presentation. I'm not going to do that now, but it's something that you might find useful to do on your own at some point. Okay, PMA, positive mental attitude. Sometimes we have what's called, people think they're better qualified than us, and we're always, as I call it, think we're behind the 8 ball all the time. You've got to believe, especially if you're all apprentices at Kaplan there, you've been picked for a reason. You've got potential, you've got qualities, and we're at this very moment in time polishing them up, making sure that you can perform to your absolute best. So you've got to remember that you're the chosen ones. You can control your reactions. And I always call it, do you respond quickly in a red mood, or do you respond slowly in a green mood, thinking about all the options? Believe in yourself and be grateful is like the things I talked about just before, that today result at night, you write down tomorrow promise. Learned helplessness is something to be wary of, that we can pick up habits that are poor habits from people. Sometimes it's from our family and parents, sometimes from friends, where we think, well, I can't do maths, I'll never do maths, and somebody said I can't do maths, so that must be factual then. So that learned helplessness is something to be very wary of. See the bigger picture, always get the details, but don't sweat the small stuff that won't influence your career. Yeah, because career is a big thing at the moment. Always be calm, don't dwell on the past. And when I say don't dwell on the past, I'll give you a very visual metaphor for that. It's like driving a car, and we look through the front windscreen, and therefore we won't drive. We won't crash, sorry. If we look in the side mirrors to see what's gone in the past and learn from it, and go back to the windscreen to keep driving, we won't crash, but we'll be better informed. But if we spend too much time looking in the wing mirrors, the side mirrors, too long, we're going to crash that car. So dwelling a little bit, learning for sure, moving on, definitely, but don't take your eyes off the goal in front of you. Okay. So compliments. I want a challenge for you today, now in the chat box, to give a compliment to somebody in your group. So this is from Ellie to Ross. Ross, you've done this really well. Jenny, you've guided me so well. Could be to us or to your friends. I want to see some compliments going in that chat box right now. If you want to interrupt me and do it verbally, you can do. Jenny's going to tell me what those compliments are to people. Just give those compliments out at random.
There's one's coming in from Corinna. All participants, well done for attending. So that's nice, because not everyone will know each other in this call, because we're some of us are apprentices and some learners from different groups. So not everyone will know. Stephanie's giving you a nice compliment there, Ross. This is a great webinar.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that. We haven't met, but hopefully we will do soon. Brilliant.
And my compliment goes to the logistics team who helped set up all of our webinars actually, and take out the last minute stress of cameras and sound. And Dilly says, everyone, you're amazing. And other people are saying nice contributions from people. Everyone's doing great. I like this one from Claire. Stop doubting yourself. Really good message there, Claire.
Yeah, doubts, once you feed it, it gets hungrier and hungrier. So don't feed it, yeah? Look for the upside. Magnify the good, but don't magnify the bad. Always have feedback for sure, but keep it in its place. Brilliant. Let's move it on then, Jenny. Super. Let's talk about exercise. And when I talk about exercise, one of our 5 pillars, some people instantly think, I'm not a gym person. I don't like exercise. Well, in lockdown, we've had a great opportunity to dispel that myth and say, because nobody had the gyms. So just being outside walking, talking, gardening, sharing something together, just being outside and getting that heart rate going up a little bit is brilliant. This morning I was on the fells in my crazy way with my poles and trying to push myself, and that's one form of exercise. I could still do the same stuff at a half the pace, talking to somebody, enjoying being outdoors. So if you can raise your heart rate a bit, especially outdoors, you get a double bubble, a double bonus. So it's something we need to think about. And again, I talk about the bottom, the frequency, intensity, and duration. Just vary those variables. You don't have to be 100% all the time, once or twice a day. In fact, there's evidence to indicate that might be contraindicated to our health long term. So, there's our people out there, say 3 times a week, 30 minutes, getting yourself out of breath, a bit of sweating is really good. If you can do it and have fun and enjoy it, it's called subtle distraction. It can be a bit challenging in a nice way, but you're not fully in the pain zone because you're talking to somebody else and being distracted. So exercise doesn't have to be painful, doesn't have to be super sweaty, doesn't have to be every day, doesn't have to be too intense. But get outdoors, do something. And it's one of those things that people tell you that this is a massive way to stop mental health challenges escalating. And it's proactive. Put your well-being practice into place on a regular basis, and it will serve you well for the rest of your life. So it doesn't have to be rocky, it doesn't have to be in a gym. So if you can, increase your exercise a little bit, or if you're doing a good level, keep doing it. Do you exercise, Jenny?
Yeah, I took up swimming in lockdown, and I do some outdoor swimming, which has got a lot more pleasant recently, but it was a little bit chilly a few months ago.
Yeah, so you don't have to be a supersonic athlete. Not that you aren't, Jenny, but you could be.
You're right there.
You just have to do something. And I always say, do it with friends. It's great when you've got friends and you get another dimension to your life. So I'm not going to over-exercise, or over-egg that one, should I say, but it's there for you to do. It's the best tablet the doctors can't recommend. Okay, diet. Okay, I was with a course recently and somebody was drinking Red Bull as I was speaking. And I can't tell you, well, I can tell you 2 reasons why it's not good for you. Short term, it gives you that spike of caffeine, which can make you hyper alert, probably too alert. And if you're going to be too alert, there's going to be a low down at some point soon. Perhaps more critically, those drinks have been proven to have a damaging effect on some people's heart. Short to long term, so 3 to 5 years, you might then find there's something wrong with your heart. And I don't want to scare people, but my advice at being ripe old age of 60, and I had some challenges with my heart a few years ago, and the specialist said to me what I already knew, that cut your caffeine down, don't go into these drinks. And he suggested to me, you might be better off not drinking alcohol. And that was 3 years ago, and I haven't touched a drop since. And the benefit to my mood and emotions is so powerful now and such more consistent. My weight's come down massively because a lot of sugar in alcohol. And I'm not going to sit here and preach to you, but if play with the idea, maybe reducing it, maybe eliminating it, it works for me. So keep away from caffeine. It's got a 10-hour shelf life. So that means if you drink a coffee at 12 o'clock like now, it's going to be in the system till 10 o'clock. That's not a problem if you're going to bed at 11. It's a problem if you're going to bed at 9 o'clock because it's still there in the system. And it's the same with when we're eating food. Have about that 3 hours, halfway down the list there, 3 hours minimum before sleep. So, try not eat 3 hours before you go to sleep. Try not to have caffeine 10 hours, the 10-hour shelf life. Even decaf has got caffeine in. So just some heads up, fizzy drinks have got caffeine in. Even the ones that have no calories have got caffeine in. Okay, so maybe it's not the calories you want to be aware of, it's the caffeine. Try and keep away from processed foods. So you can buy the ready meals, fine. Now and again, fine. But if you can make some of your foods from scratch, you know what's going into it. And it's a very powerful way that you'll get feeling good about your life. Now, it won't happen in one meal. It might take months for it to come through and start feeling better. So you don't get immediate feedback from a change in diet. It happens slowly, and you've got to believe in it and introduce that. Don't be too rigid. Every meal must be super healthy, because everybody likes a cheat meal now and again, which is fine. Have that balance. I have a NutriBullet in my kitchen. Probably see it behind me somewhere. And I put some raw vegetables in there with some blueberries and have that about once every 2 days when I feel like doing it. Yeah. And then my vegetables at night that I cook them. So they reckon 5 portions a day. Some people say 10. I don't count that much, but I eat them. I have them ready to go, and I have some raw and some fried, some cooked, So that really works for me. Fruits are good, but they contain a lot of sugar, And your dentist will probably tell you no more than 2 pieces of fruit a day for the rot on the teeth, but also the sugar, which can, turn to effectively calories in our body. Again, I mentioned sleeping before, eating, alcohol, smoking. Again, it's a stimulant we don't want in our system. And also it can be threatening our quality of life, our health span, and our lifespan. There's enough evidence now. In the 50s, when my parents started smoking, they weren't aware of that. They lived a healthy life, I think probably because they stopped in the 30s and they realized and the evidence was coming out. So I'm not going to sit here and preach like a 60-year-old man to people in the 20s. You make your choices, and that goes for the last one as well. Okay. So being connected. What do I mean in a pillar, being connected? Well, the TV adverts, it talks about talking, and talking is good to people. I would always, if I was in charge of those adverts, I'd say listening is more important. So being able to listen to what somebody's saying to you and then being authentically there with them. When you're listening, you don't have to solve anything. Just being there, you're giving them your time, you're giving them your attention. You don't have to give advice. So being a strong listener who's not distracted, who's in that moment with you, is a very powerful therapeutic tool without getting to have a solve in this problem, a solution. Yeah, so talking and listening go together. Now, if I'm going to give you one piece of advice, and I don't like the word advice, but one thing I'm going to say to you is this: try and find at least one person who you can be vulnerable with. That means share your innermost secrets, how you're feeling today, what's going in the future. Am I catastrophizing, thinking the worst things, and really it's not that bad anyway? So having that person you can speak to. And I live on my own, and I recognize that in me, that I need someone sometimes to speak to. I prefer to speak to a woman. I think the women I find in my life as friends can be very empathetic. They understand me and they won't judge me. So that's a big thing, isn't it? Finding somebody you can talk to and share your views. If you're fortunate to have great parents, that might be somebody you can do that with. But certainly a friend you can trust is very powerful. And it's something I can't recommend highly enough, because when we get lots of thoughts and we don't get an alternative viewpoint, we can go off at a tangent. And that's I'm a bit wary of. So being vulnerable is a good thing. Yeah. And Brené Brown, if you want to read a book, Brave in the Wilderness, Brené Brown, she talks about in life just standing up and being brave. It doesn't mean like running across hot coals or going to stop somebody hurting somebody else. It's just about stand up and believing who you are and trying to reach your potential and not being scared all the time, not to keep thinking negative thoughts. Like we said before, with doubt, it can sort of multiply very quickly. So be brave. And she talks about 2 aspects of being connected. She talks about, she was at a Socceroos match, a football match with the Australian national team playing Liverpool. And before the match started, they played the You'll Never Walk Alone, that song, and everybody sings it. And there was 93,000 people in the stadium, and both sides were singing the same song because they're all Liverpool fans. And the crowd was singing it, and it felt like there was no opposition. Everybody felt together. And she said the hairs in the back of her neck went up, and she had a really strong surge of a good feeling. That we call it in our body, those endorphins, almost like oxytocin, which is the love hormone, but the serotonin that calms us down, makes us feel good. So if we're then in that national anthem, in that case, it's very powerful. You can have the same effect in a choir, and you don't have to be able to sing. So singing in a choir gives you those rush of good chemicals, endorphin, oxytocin, serotonin. But also the good thing about this, there's some research recently that said when you're in a choir and singing, you feel connected, you feel part of a group, but also it can reduce your pain. So if you've got an ache or a pain, something, it distracts you from that and reduces the threshold down. So it's a very good thing to do for that point of view as well. Being connected and being vulnerable are very powerful tools. And I suggest if anybody's struggling sometimes, that might be the area they need to address. Bit of a quiz on sleep. I don't know the best way to play this. What I'll do, I'll let you play yourself. I won't go to the chat box in this one, unless you want to. But we'll do it relatively quickly, and we'll see how we go. So how many hours sleep a night do you need if you are 5 years old? That's a tough one, isn't it? How many do a 5-year-old? Some of you might have children, I don't know. I'll give you a few seconds. You can put the chat You can just play a game on yourself. There's about 8 questions here.
People are saying 10 hours, 8 hours.
Okay, let's go then, Jenny. It's 11 hours.
12.
11 hours. So the younger people need a bit more for their body to replenish and restore and rebuild themselves because they're growing units. Okay, what if you're 9 years old? There's a clue in that, what I've just said.
10.
10.
9.
Boom, it's in the room at 10.
8.
Yeah. Can you see the trend already? The older we get, the less sleep we need. How about a teenager?
7. Gabby,
8
9.
to 10. 8 to 10. They're a bit greedy there. Okay, but if you're an adult, they say an adult, and I'm saying adult over, well, the brain starts fully functioning at 25, but I'm going to put an arbitrary figure of, say, 20, and you're doing some, you're working. I would say anywhere is fine. It depends on individual preferences. 6 to 8 hours is fine. And some will say, I'm at 8 hours. Well, not everybody needs 8 hours, yeah? And some will get hung up on that fact that I haven't had my 8 hours because that seems to be a thrown around sort of number. It doesn't always have to be 8. And some of the prime ministers, Margaret Thatcher in the past, you might remember her, she survived quite commonly on 5 hours a day and functioned very highly. It might not work for everybody, but what I'm trying to tell you is don't get hung up on having it 8 hours every night. If it's a bit less, that's fine. It's the quality, not the quantity of sleep. Okay, next one, the sleep quiz. Sleep's very powerful for us. What hormone do we need to stimulate to help sleep occur? Anybody? There's a bit of a brain box question. I haven't told you this yet. Does anybody know it?
Serotonin. We've had one in.
Serotonin would help.
Melatonin.
Melatonin. And guess where we find quite a bit of melatonin that activates it is in a banana. So if you have a banana like an hour or so before you go to sleep, apparently it's very good at stimulating the production of melatonin. Another thing that helps melatonin production is when we go out during the day, and then as the day progresses and it gets later, we come inside, as we generally do, and we dim the lights. So what you're doing, if you want a good sleep and put the odds in your favor, get outside during the day if you can, doesn't matter how long it's for. And as the night sort of wears in, 4, 5, 6 o'clock, come inside, don't have your lights blazing, but actually gradually make them lower. So you're actually saying to the circadian system in your body, actually, it's time to start slowing down, shutting down, time for sleep. So you can trick yourself into sleep by doing those patterns in terms of light. Okay, next question. Exercise is always good to help ensure a good night's sleep? Yes or no? I'm going to give this one. I think people might know this one, and I want to win the game.
We've had some yeses and some no's, actually.
That's what I thought. Not always.
Oh, yes, but not too late.
There we go. Who was that?
That was Natalia.
Oh, well done. The later the exercise, the more negative impact potential. Again, it varies from person to person. Leave a minimum of 3 hours before you sleep. So exercise at 6, go to bed after 9 o'clock, you'll be fine. Yeah, don't exercise, blah, 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 and then go to bed and sleep. You might be fine. You might be that tired, you sleep really well. I'm saying to you, play the odds. Give yourself a relaxation downtime after exercise, go into that routine, yeah? Because a lot of time we exercise in bright lights, yeah? And if we exercise in bright lights, we're not saying that circadian system to go to sleep, it's saying wake up. So that's why it's difficult sometimes. The bedroom should be a temperature between 18 and 24°C. Okay, difficult one, true, yeah? So if you want to test it, test it. As a general rule of thumb, have it just a touch cooler than a touch warmer. Okay, if you're not sure, just a bit touch cooler than a touch warmer. That's generally what most people, most scientists will prefer you to do. Okay, the next one, only 3 more left, I think. Sleep is affected by the use of caffeine in coffee, tea, and soft drinks, energy drinks. How many hours must you wait until it's completely out of your system? Well, I've given the answer to this already. How long does it take caffeine to exit the system?
Everyone knows now, it's 10 hours.
Oh,
so
fantastic. Up to 10 hours.
Yeah.
People are different, but up to 10 hours. Brilliant. Sleep is affected by eating late. How many hours minimum should you have after eating before you go to sleep? We've said it already. Can I?
3.
3 is the answer. 3 to 4. They're listening. A strict bedtime routine will assist sleep duration and quality. A loaded question.
Yes, everyone's saying.
Not necessarily. There are people who get too rigid. I must go to bed at 10 minutes past 9. I must have this drink at 7 o'clock. I must do this at that. Why am I not sleeping? Because we're too focused. A good routine that you don't obsess about, that you put into place and you follow it, is great. And it probably works better when you're just a touch more flexible. I didn't have 3 hours. I had 2 hours. I'm not upset about it. I'll see how we go on. If I don't sleep this time, I'll go back to my usual one next time. So it's about being flexible and taking your own personal feedback. So don't get too rigid, get more flexible, and work with it. Work with your body. Don't think you're doing everything right. Why can't I sleep? That is the problem, because we're too rigid. Okay, so some top tips then. As I said, routines to be flexible. You think of the drinks and nutrition. You say like Horlicks and Ovaltine an hour before bed, like a banana, are brilliant for some people. Think about turning the lights down, especially. And all those things I've talked about, writing stuff down is very powerful during the day. Before you go to sleep, write the stuff down so you're not potentially thinking about it when you're trying to sleep. So capture the thoughts, write them down, put the book away. Now you're saying to your body in a subconscious level, time to sleep, okay? Blue light and white light, TVs and phones, and white light coming from the sides, from the outdoors. Try, if you struggle with that light, put some blackout blinds in. Some people say, don't have your phone in your bedroom, charge it somewhere else. That's up to you, You can read at night as an hour before, but don't read thrillers because they can upset you and get you thinking too much. So people put lavender on pillows and stuff of that nature, and warm baths, great to do as well. But see if it works for you. Don't say Ross said it, so it must work, and get to that very rigid routine. Try stuff out and see what works for you. Yeah, be experimental. Okay. Right. Some people say, some doctors say, after 15 minutes, you can't sleep, get up. I don't do that. And I have had challenges with my sleep over the years. I'm not in a bad zone at the moment. I've just transitioned into a good one again. I think I'm just relaxing about stuff. So some people say after 15 minutes, get up and walk around, do something, then go back to sleep. It's up to you. And the other thing there I've just talked about before, the temperature, smoking, blackout curtains, earplugs. Earplugs is a great one, isn't it? It makes sense to put the earplugs if you're affected by noise. Okay. So I'm going to come on to a bit of stress, but, really in life, stress is a good thing. It was coined in the 1950s by a guy called Hans Selye, and he coined it to say we need stress. Stress helps us get through life. It helps us perform to our best. The problem is it helps us get out of bed in the morning, it helps us go to work, it helps us get a job. Sometimes, whether it's real or not, whether we think it or we experience it, if some people get too much frequency, intensity, and duration, and Jenny and I could be a good example where I could get a stressor and Jenny can get the same stressor, but react to it differently. And, that's life. People are all different. But you've got to make sure that if you're doing something and it's hard work, that's okay initially. But if it keeps being hard work and it makes you worry and think about things too much, then it's something you need to reduce that stress in. Because if we get too much stress, again, real or perceived, we can actually go to burnout. And burnout is where we're good for nothing. Our memory goes, we don't want to face stuff, we're avoiding something. And that could lead us into things of anxiety and depression and all those sort of things we don't want to go too near. On the other side of the coin, if we don't get enough stress, we become rusty. We don't want to take anything on board. And that's not a good place to be either. So it's about performing, taking on some stresses. If you can take it on, you feel good with it, carry on. If you're feeling a bit wobbly, then just hold it in a bit in terms of the frequency, intensity, and duration. You've got to manage yourself in that one. I know sometimes you're thinking, I'm at work, I've got to do these hours, I've got it this way. But you can actually think about how it's affecting you. And there's different ways to manage that. But I'm just trying to give you awareness of a conceptual awareness that we need stress. So when people say stress, don't say it's a bad guy. It's not a bad person. And the good hormones, we talked about some of these. Serotonin keeps us nice and calm. Dopamine, the reward hormone when we get home after a long week's work and we get some money and we get some good friends and have some fun. We need to keep these going. Endorphin, generally associated with exercise. Oxytocin is when we're in love. So when these good guys are in place, The bad guys with adrenaline and cortisol have got nowhere to go to. And this is really important for us. Having those moments each day, each week, where we're actually looking forward to something. This will release these chemicals. And if you release these chemicals, there's a good chance on a regular basis, we're not going to go into that worrying, depressed state. Because we know when we're depressed, one of the signs, clinical signs of depression is where we don't have anything to look forward to. And we need things to look forward to in our lives. Very important now. So adrenaline is a good guy. Some people think it's a bad guy. It helps us perform. A bit like cortisol, the stress hormone. But if we're constantly pumping adrenaline and cortisol into our system, at the slightest thought of something going wrong, or we're doing too much for too long, then it's going to work against us. So the good chemicals, they come from the adrenal glands and the kidneys. They take milliseconds to get to our brain, but ultimately they could wear away our bodies, literally rot our organs from the inside out. I'm talking about years now. So try and manage your stress, work with it. And some people say to me, resilience is great, and I say it is. But if we're too resilient, push all the time, we could burn out. That graph I showed you before. So for me, resilience is push, but it's also about being adaptable, taking your foot off the gas sometimes, coming back a bit, reflecting, and maybe going again, a bit smarter, a bit sharper next time, a bit more refueled, getting a bit of feedback from somebody you talk to, being vulnerable with them. So the good guys, they could be bad. There's an exercise there. It's called Mindfulness Chocolate. I'm not going to do that because time is ticking away very fast. So I'm just going to whiz down to another one here. I'm just going to miss that one out. And I'm just going to go for some ones here. So here we go. So if you want some strategies to use, this is one from Owen. I love his book, Zen to 10. What a catchy title. And he talks about having 4 things you do each day. So you have a routine where you clear the mind of all your thoughts. And you could do some breathing exercises we talked about last time. Give permission to not beat yourself up and congratulate yourself. Look for the good stuff. Minimize the bad stuff. Just ignore the bad stuff because the good stuff will outweigh it every single time. So congratulate yourself. Congratulate yourself tonight, thinking, have some breathing. Did that course today with Ross, learned some things, had some fun, and actually start changing my well-being. Recognize your triggers, but always turn the triggers into a positive. So when I do something wrong, I did a poll yesterday, didn't quite work out the way I wanted. I won't do it again next time, and I've learned to be better next time. So I can't wait to try it again to show my improvement. So I've visualized that success, and I've got some in brackets there. With, I sometimes visualize going up a mountain. The mountain top could be my goal this week, and I think of all the things I've got to do to get there. But I'm very positive I will get there. Always be grateful. And when I say gratitude, look for the champagne moments every day. There's always 1 or 2 every day, good things that happen. So look for those champagne moments, and it'll train your brain to look for the positive rather than be hung up on the negatives. Yeah, simple positive psychology. This is an activity, again, you've got the presentation. I'm not going to go through this, but this is like a 10 minutes, similar to the last slide, but it's all about keeping your mind empty and clear and calming yourself. I don't do this, and it might work for me, might not. But for some people, they tell me it works really well for them, just to center themselves each day. So maybe looking out the window, nice view, going through this. And after a bit, you won't have to remember it, you'll just do it. Just to zone you out, ready for the day ahead of us. Yeah. So there's something you can keep and use afterwards. Here's a great one, before Jay interrupts me. Negative thoughts, we're all going to get them. You can't ignore them. So in sports psychology, we talk about recognizing them and playing with them. So a negative thought could come, it knocks on the door, you open the door and say, yes, you're a negative thought, but not today, please, go away. So you've not said, oh, stop thinking about it. You've talked to the thought, you said, go away. And the second example is that that thought keeps coming back, invite the thought through your house. Going through every room in the house. Okay, are we both bored with it now? Yes, see you later, thought. Okay, those are 2 for you. Jenny, do you want to give some questions from the chat box and we go through that?
Yeah, I've had some in actually to the panelists. So we've had a couple that relate to social anxiety. So one says, how do I deal with social anxiety and getting to know colleagues better? And the other says, how do we get used to coping in face-to-face meetings again and dealing with eye contact?
Okay, remind me of the second question in a second. I'll take the first one first. Social anxiety. You know, this doesn't happen overnight. It happens over a period of time. And sometimes it's based on things that have happened. Sometimes it's based on our perception of what's going to happen. And that's, you know, I've said it before, that catastrophizing. Well, what if nobody talks to me? What if nobody's around? What if I look a fool? Well, you'll never know that until you do it. So social anxiety, I would say, for me, I would, okay, if you feel comfortable doing it online at home, that's fine, do that. But the world happens, and it happened before we went online massively. So maybe set yourself some small targets, some small goals of speaking to somebody every day or every other day on a small number scale. Yeah, 1 or 2 people you might know. And then maybe, if you want to step it up a bit more, you can go and meet somebody with that same friendly, a bit of support, and see somebody else who we don't know. So you're manipulating your environment in a very sharp, clever way that will give you that confidence and not being scared to go and talk and open up a bit more. You know, you've got to think, my mindset, the world's a good place. If you think it's a bad place, then you'll probably get evidence to sort of support that. When I'm looking at the world's a good place, then I get evidence, I'm looking for evidence to say, yeah, it is a good place. So if I'm going out to see people and talk to people, I look at it as an opportunity rather than a threat. And that's an interesting statement, isn't it? So maybe have stages where you're with your friends and other people who are not your friends yet. Strangers are just strangers until they become friends. And then try and sort of accept it and see it as an opportunity to grow. And if you want those goals and ambitions for your life, at some point we'll have to go and speak to people and do stuff. But, you know, there's some interesting steps there. The second question, Jenny, was?
Similar, it was how do we get used to face-to-face meetings and using eye contact again? And I've had something similar in the chat directly about somebody being really worried about going back to the office, having worked from home for so long and having to react and deal with people.
Yeah, and sometimes in life, you know, we have habits that we develop. We don't know we're developing them. Then when we're faced with a challenge, oh, the initial reaction is, I can't do that. It's a natural phenomenon to feel like that. So that's the first thing. It's natural. You're not strange by thinking, I can't do it now. What's happened to me? I've lost all my confidence. You haven't lost all your confidence. You just get out of the routine of going to the office and meeting people and talking to people. So we need to start that routine up again. And it starts again with small steps. We've got to go in the office at some point, I suspect. So, you know, as long as you're safe, whatever safe means for you, if you're wearing the mask and the hand sanitizers and distances, whatever works for you is great. And a good boss, and I know they're very good on this at Kaplan, they respect that. So you should have a safe environment, you know, physically to work in. And it's about feeling your way and doing little bits and maybe speaking to your line manager. Can I do not a full day to start with? Can I have it like less? And then can I do some work on? Can you gradually step me up into where I need to be? And it's a big ask to ask them to stop doing one at home to do fully at work. Some people will be able to do that, not a problem. Some people might struggle a little bit. Other people see it as a big fear. So everybody's different. So maybe speak to your line manager. Can we have some sort of graded system where I can go in at slow and build up and build up and build up? And, you know, these sessions here and the one-to-one sessions, you know, get on that. We'll talk about it and we'll get something bespoke for you. But just take it slowly. There's no rush in the world, yeah? And you've got a lot of years ahead of you. So let's just take it slow. Let's not create any major issues at this moment in time. Another question, Jenny?
Yeah, we've got time for one more, and then we need to wrap up actually, because I've got another slide I want us to go through. So somebody's asking about how you recognize mental health issues early on.
Yeah, earlier the better, you know, and sometimes somebody else might recognize it. But for ourselves, I would say that we're overthinking. Overthinking is something that young people do a lot. You're not young people, you're in your 20s, but certainly younger people in the teens do a lot. And they don't give the brain a chance to sort of switch off and distract and recover. And then we can sort of catastrophize all the negative stuff. And then it becomes something we can't stop. So recognizing when you're catastrophizing, and what you do then is touch base with somebody else by being vulnerable and say, listen, if I'm with you, Jenny, I said, Jenny, I'm having all these thoughts. Do you think that's true? And a good friend would probably listen to you first and then say, have you got evidence for that, Ross? Where's the evidence to prove that you're right? And when you start to pick the evidence up, you might find there's not that much evidence there. It's just your own viewpoint. So a good listening friend who could help you be the detective and find the evidence of that is fine. So self-awareness initially with a friend is very powerful. But be proactive, do the exercise, try and get the sleep. And sleep, I say again, because sleep, when we're not sleeping well, that for me is a trigger. I know I'm not sleeping well, I'm a bit more vulnerable. So that's one of my signs. When I'm not sleeping well, it makes me think, I'm not going to go so heavy on exercise today. I'm not going to take on as much today. I'm going to pat myself in the back and find some more rewards and lower my expectation a little bit. So when you feel in that sort of funny sort of mood, and especially with me with the sleeping, for you it could be another trigger. Recognize that trigger and just accommodate it. You don't have to go 100 miles an hour every single day, because even the most resilient people will stumble eventually.
Yeah.
So why
just
stumble?
one super last quick question that's come in from somebody is it true that lack of sleep can hinder physical growth or development?
Yes, sleep is, as some would say, more important in a lot of ways than diet. Diet's essential, sleep's essential. But when we've got half decent diet and very good sleep, we will flourish. If we've got very good food and sleep, then we're going to go supersonic. But the point I'm trying to make here is this. You can get away with a bit poorer diet sometimes, but you won't survive if you're getting fractured or broken or poor sleep. That is something that will stop you in your tracks. So you must think about what's going to give you good sleep. And I think some of the things we talked about there will give you that answer.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Ross. Do you think we could move to the penultimate slide? Just conscious of time.
That one?
No, just the last one. Here we go. Further support. That's the one. Yeah, lovely. Thank you. So we've had some really practical advice from you again today, and I always take things away from sessions with you. So I will be eating bananas in the evening, thank you, and remembering to state the purpose and pop my barriers. So thank you very much, Ross, for that. For everyone on the call, Kaplan, I'm the Apprenticeship Partnerships Director at Kaplan, but also responsible for wellbeing overall for all of our learners, and we provide lots of really good support on a microsite and on the website, so there's further support for anybody who would like to have that. Anything really serious, we've got a safeguarding email address there on the screen, safeguarding@kaplan.co.uk. And we've got a third session with Ross on the 7th of July, and we'd love you to join us at that. It's at 12 o'clock again. It's not automatic that if you signed into this one that you'll get the invite for the next one. So go back to that link on Eventbrite and re-register for the third one. We asked questions from learners as to what you would like to see in the third and final session, and it came back with a lot of people wanting more things on emotional confidence to maximize performance. So if anyone would like to give me some other messages in the chat now, if they were thinking of something different, we will go with emotional confidence and maximizing performance in our third session on the 7th of July. And finally, we'd love a bit of feedback from you about these, because it's the second one that we've run. So if you could type a message to all panelists about what you've liked about this, how you would rate it out of 10, that would be really helpful for us as we work on developing the third in the series. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure to have you with us and contributing so much. And Ross, final word from you?
Our word is keep doing what you're doing, look for the positives, minimize those negatives, speak to somebody, be vulnerable, and have that belief. Yeah, life's good. It's long, it's going to be good, and it's going to be enjoyable. Hold on to that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy your afternoon. Thank you.